Hey guys, Cube Guy here to explain how to go about making your first cube. Things I'll be discussing today are what goes into a cube, how you can theme it, and how to handle picking which leaders you want to use. For my last video, we discussed how the cube is constructed card-wise. So if you have 4 players, 50 card decks, you'll need 200 cards for the cube. So today, we're going to be discussing how to fill that cube up with cards that you could actually use. So there are 3 types of cards currently that you'd be putting into this pool of cards to draft. And those would be the battle cards, the extra cards, and the Unison cards. So with that being said, I'm going to show you a constructed deck. As you can see, this deck only runs 13 different cards. In a singleton cube, you'll be having a 50 card deck that has 50 unique cards. So in order to be able to build a good cube, you need to dig deep past what the meta is using and find the good cards that can stand on themselves, on their own 2 feet. So in order to do that, you really have to look through a lot of stuff that has never seen play or doesn't see much play or hasn't seen play in a really long time. And they're still good, they're just not good enough to be top echelon of the cards. So, one of those cards just so happens to be Destructive Terror Champa. He hasn't seen play in a very long time, simply because by today's standards, he's pretty underwhelming. 25,000 power isn't that strong for how expensive he is. He does have Triple Strike, and he does wipe the board, but once again, there's not enough good Champa cards and the Evolve still playing him on turn 5. There's better options out there for a meta deck. But in Cube, he is extremely powerful simply because it's normally a slower format. Normally, he can wipe the board because of how slow the format is, and Triple Strike is a very big thing. So he can see play in a cube where he otherwise would not. Another example would be the Ultimate Evil Majin Buu. He's also very strong, but Majin Buu decks, at least the blue variant, hasn't seen play in a while. And he is iffy on if he's good or not, depending on the type of cube you have. So if you just have a singleton cube, I would advise passing up on him because what makes him powerful is his auto. And if you have singleton, there's not really very many Majin Buus that you would be able to play with him. And the chances of you getting a full chain is very slim. So most of the time he'd be a dead card anyway. However, if you are theming your cube around Majin Buu cards, and you have multiple copies of multiple different Majin Buus, then you could potentially have 1 copy or 2 copies of this one as a finisher. He'll be extremely easy to get out because you've themed the cube around Majin Buus, and if there's only a couple of these, whoever gets to draft him, it would actually give him a higher weight. Now we're going to talk about Unisons. So the Unison card I've brought up is Xenocosmic Unison. He is extremely powerful in Cube because not only is he extremely powerful constructed because of the ramp, but Cube is slower once again, so being able to ramp things, and Unisons also really help the curve of the game, and they just add a whole other power level to it. And since there's not very many of them right now, being able to draft the Unison can change the complete outcome of your deck in the drafting phase. And up next, if you want to make more aggro efficient cubes or things, you just dump a whole bunch of sand cabas in there and really make it like a super hyper aggro cube if that's what you want. Even if not, it's really nice to have the Self Awakeners, especially a generic card such as this one and Gohan. They can be played in anything. They're really good simply because they cost 1 energy, they self-awaken, they do some damage, and you don't really have to pin yourself into a specific theme in order to play them. Up next, I have a couple extra cards. Now, generally, when they come out with new sets, there's a lot more battle cards than extra cards. So, in a singleton cube, it's a lot harder to get a good pool of extra cards and be able to play. So, some of the lesser seen ones, such as Whis' Coercion and Vados' Assistance, are pretty good in a cube, simply because it's a counterattack that negates it, and those are pretty rare in the extra card zone. And since no one really plays these in constructed anymore because there's better options, these are a lot stronger in the cube format. So then we're on to theming cube. If you want to make a themed cube built around swap, it'd be really nice to just have all the different swap engines in the cube. So you can have a bunch of people using the Goku's lineage swap and then have a copy or two of the Haida Mastery. So while everyone's swapping to different things, the guy that drafts this has the finisher. And then it'd just be a fun little format that is very casual, like Cube's supposed to be, but also pretty potent. Now, you don't have to just stick with Haida Mastery if you do a swap cube. You can also have the Frieza swap engine as well, and have a Frieza deck versus a Goku deck, and that'd be pretty cool. And it would also be a different color, so that way your cube isn't monocolor. And if you're lucky and crazy, you might just have both engines. Now, the Frieza one would need a specific leader when the Haida Mastery one doesn't, so you would have to use the Frieza leader, and that might not be as good, but hey, that's up to you. Now, speaking of leaders, there's two leaders that you can use. You can use the Vegeta or the Xeno leaders. Now, these have the perks of being all the colors and critical, and they're basically just carbon copies of each other. One's just a Saiyan and the other one's Xeno. So these are made for drafting, since why they come in the draft box, but you don't have to use them. You can use any leader you want. Me personally, I have a pool of leaders that I use, and I shuffle them up every time, deal everyone out some leaders, and then you draft the deck around what leaders you have, and then at the end of the draft, you go ahead and you pick which leader you want. Um, Makes it a lot more diverse. I was playing a cube with just the Vegeta leader, and everyone had it, and it was a very boring format for me, at least, because I'm not an aggro player, and Vegeta really lends towards being an aggressive deck. It's because he has the critical, and you want to get them to awaken so they lose the critical, and then you stay on your front side because you can still hit them with critical, and then no one has hands. And in cube, there isn't as much drawing potential, so it's hand control is very powerful simply because it's harder to refill your hand. That wasn't something that I liked. I like having other leaders to use, and it also makes it a lot more diverse because then you can actually build a deck around a specific leader if you want. My final note for this video is going to be the super combos. There's a few different ways you can handle these as well. You can either not have super combos in your cube at all, which I don't think is fun, but I mean, to each their own. It could be possible. The next is you can have the super combos in your cube and draft. That's what I did for the majority of the time I've had a cube. I do not like this simply because if you get all of the super combos in your packs, then you get all the super combos, no one else gets any, and then now the game is heavily favored towards you winning because you have a very powerful tool that other people don't. And currently, in my cube, the way I have it set up is cards like Unwavering Solidarity Shugesh is a very powerful super combo. He is in the cube, so if you get him in your pack, you can still draft him. However, I still play by normal deck building standards to where you can't have more than 4 super combos in your deck. What that does is helps you draft the really powerful ones if you see them, but if you don't see a single super combo, I have the 0-10k at 4 life draw card and the sparking super combos as a separate pool, to where At the end of the draft, you can then pick from them whichever ones you want and add them to your deck, so that way everyone's on an even playing field with super combos. That's all I have for today. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.